So let's get to um, understanding of the basic terminologies in Archer. And for those of you who don't know what exactly Archer is, I'll just brief a little bit about Archer. So Archer is one of the leading GRC tool in the market, GRC automation tool in the market, uh, where all the GRC processes and practices could be completely automated into a single platform, which is Archer. So Archer is like a centralized repository to all the GRC applications, all the GRC use cases where you can design workflows, where you can design reporting, where you can design notifications, where you can customize the permissionings, create dashboards. So Archer comes as a web-based software or as a web-based tool, which a bunch of functionalities and features which helps large-scale enterprises to completely automate their GRC processes and practices. So to begin with, what exactly is an application in Archer? So if I were to say, uh, let's say we are working in any organization and we know that we probably would have a bunch of IT assets in the organization. Now we can classify this IT assets either as a server or a computer or a network or a firewall or any other IT asset which we can think of that an organization must be comprising of. Now for every IT asset, you will see that there is a functional owner, there is an application owner associated to it. There may be certain description what your organization might have thought of. Then you will also see how critical that asset is for the organization, right? So all of these combined together, basic information about the asset, what are assets, description about the assets, right? They frame up a record in Archer. So if I classify my asset as asset number one, asset number two, asset number three, asset number four, and the list goes on and on, right? So all these assets combined together in one particular repository, that is application. So application is collection of all these assets in a tool. So assets could differ, as I mentioned earlier, from several devices to several mainly related to networking, or be it related to database, be it related to just support. So all these assets, we combine it together, we form up a group, we form up a collection that is known as an application in Archer. And every individual asset, what we study over here, that one may be for server, one may be for database, one may be for just support, one may be personal laptops, right? Now each of these is a unique asset. Each of these asset has been given a particular identity, maybe an identification number, or maybe some kind of institutional number with the help of which they are identified. So each of these individual assets is termed as a record in Archer. That is an individual record. And getting into a little bit more depth, what we see is the details within the asset. So let's say if we talk about a particular asset like a personal laptop. Now, within the personal laptop, you may know that you need to provide a description about that laptop, that what that laptop is meant for. Then I'm sure there would be a application owner to that laptop. There would be a functional owner to that laptop. Then it would be dates and the criticality, that how critical that asset is. Then we also define that if that is very critical, then do we need to perform any kind of assessment, or do we need to perform any kind of sanity checks, etc. So based on that, different fields in Archer are created. One could be classified as a date field, as I just said, that we may have a date to it, so that is simply a date field in Archer. One could have numeric entries, which could be a numeric number or any other numeric identity. We can consider that as a numeric field. One could be a description to that particular asset, so that could be like a text field. Then you define the criticality as high, medium, low, then that's a values list field. We customize this entire application based on the fields, based on the records. And then accordingly, we divide that into which domain they belong to. So talking about all the GRC areas, you can classify the application based on risk management, you can classify the application based on policies, you can classify the application based on internal audit or auditing, or be it third party vendor management. So all the areas of GRC, what one may think of, or what one may consider, you can build up your own applications. Within this application, of course, there has to be some kind of records or data. And then how to customize that, what field should be there, what should be the values in each of these fields, etc., is completely depending on the business requirements that we get. So this is very basic idea about what exactly is application in Archer, what is record, and what exactly is a field. Now let's try to move into the tool, and I'm going to log into Archer tool and show you how exactly user accounts, access roles, groups, all of these are created in Archer. So I'll just go ahead and log into the tool now. Now we'll gradually go ahead and go with the user creation process in Archer. Okay, so I'll go ahead and go to this settings tab. This is also known as administrator tab or administrator dashboard, where all the admin functionalities which we are going to go through, a couple of them throughout our sessions today, tomorrow, and day after, I would be covering that. But this is the basic admin toolkit what we get as Archer administrators. So I'll go ahead in the access role segment of Archer, and within that I'll go to users for now. So as you can see, these are a bunch of users what have existing in the system. I have got a bunch of users who are existing in the system, and we are going to create a brand new user in Archer, and I'll show you the process of creating Archer. What does each of these field means? How are you supposed to populate this information, etc. So simply by clicking on add new, as I just did, you can create an Archer account by populating the fields what we are seeing on the screen. So the very basic and necessary fields what we have to enter up is the first name of a person. So let's say we enter up the very first name as infosec, and then I may enter my last name as train. Okay. Middle name is optional. If you want to enter it, feel free to, else that's completely optional. So you can enter the first name and the last name simply in a text format. There is no case sensitivity. Whatever you feed in here, Archer will accept it. It can accept numbers, it can accept alphabets, everything is allowed. Special characters, there is no restriction around first name or last name. It's a simple plain text fields. Similarly, I have to enter a username. So username is mandatory in Archer. Now, without a username, you will not be able to log into the tool. So username is something which is very mandatory for any user account you create in Archer to have it. And you also have to ensure that one username can just be allocated to one user. Meaning username has to be unique for each of the user what you create in Archer. I can create multiple users with same name. I can create another user which would say infosec train into bracket 1 into bracket 2 or so, but with username it has to be completely unique. So I am going to enter a username as webinar 1. This is my username, and if this username is not used by anybody, Archer will allow me to save it. When we complete the rest of the details, when I go ahead and save it, Archer will not throw any error. But if I try to use an existing username, we'll see an error at the end when creating a user account. Now, if we talk about user domain, now ideally domain means that if you want to classify a user, what you are creating, maybe based on departments or maybe based on region or maybe based on divisions in your organization, you can divide those user according to the domains. But this domain is just for your purpose. It does not impact the functionality, neither does it impact their credentials to log in. It's just for your purpose that you are classifying this domain, or you are creating one user and you are giving a particular domain to it. Now, ideally, we do not give domains over here. There are several ways of classifying the users in different ways. But from Archer point of view, from user account point of view, we go with no domain. So this, we can consider that this user is used across the platform. There is no restriction to this user account in terms of logging into the system, because we are mainly here dealing with access control and login credentials and so forth, so on. So we do not give any kind of domain. No domain is by default a single domain what is available in Archer to everybody. Hence we use no domain over here. But if you want to classify, you can. And by default, I'll see created by and updated by. So I logged in with my account. My account name is user test. So it will show me that on this particular time, which is as per Eastern Standard Time, I have created this Archer account, and this is the last time I updated it. So this is generated by the system, and I do not have any control of modifying this details or this data. This remains stagnant and nobody can update or change this. Now, address, company, title, phone number, these are all optional fields when creating an account in Archer. We will see in a moment when we go to access control reports. But all these information what we see here is optional. If you want to give it, you can. You can give an address, you can give a complete address. Again, these are all text fields and there is no restriction over here. You can insert any information what you feel like. Now, important aspect over here is the email address. Now, why email address is non-mandatory field when creating a user account, but it is very important from function point of view in order for the user account to have appropriate rights and appropriate usability of the tool. Now, without any email address, Archer has a specific area of notifications, as you might be seeing here on the dashboard, right? So notifications are configured in Archer in such a way that at any point in time throughout the workflow, if you want to trigger notification to users, to their managers, you want to escalate any pending work to their managers or their directors or so, you can configure notifications accordingly. Now, without having an email address, no notification will go out to this particular user if I do not put a valid email address. So that's why having an email address on user account is very important and uh, effective for proper functioning and ensuring that user is receiving appropriate alerts and notifications from the system. But it does not uh, you know allow you, it does not mean that you have to have an email address. It's not a mandatory field, but just for better functionality and usability, you put up an email address and that works the best. So I just say test@gmail.com, or your company's name, whatever might be the email address, you can just put up the email address over here. And then all these email 2 3 4 5, they are all optional or additional email. It does not much matter, as long as you have a default email address on which mainly all your notifications, all your alerts from the system would go on. So email address over here holds this importance. Now comes the time zone and language. So Archer is available, and you can set up time zone all across the globe. As you can see, all the time zones in the world are available for you to select. But important thing what we have to remember over here is where majority of your business users or stakeholders are, you choose that time zone, plus where your Archer is hosted, because Archer is hosted on servers, and you have to see on what time zone you have adjusted your servers, or on what time zone they are pretty much working on. So based on that time zone, you have to provide a time zone over here. Again, there is no restriction. You can choose any time zone what you may want. But what happens is, if I'm choosing an Indian time over here, of course, this is not 9:48 a.m. here in India. It's already late evening here in India. So for some users, they will see time in EST. For some users, they will see time in IST, and depending on different locations. So it is very much important to have a common time zone for every user what you create in Archer to avoid any kind of anomalies and any kind of confusions. Because even the date gets changed. If somebody is from Australian region, they may, since they are ahead of time, they would see any other date over here. So that creates more confusion and problems around the system. So it's better to go with just uniform time zone. And language, Archer is available in almost all the globally used language. You can select amongst the list available here, but we ideally go with English. English being a standard language, we choose English as a language. You can customize it from a user account to user account. Choose whatever language you feel comfortable like, but English stands as a global language, so we use English over here. Now comes one of the most important parts related to security parameters, status, and password of the account. Now, in Archer, we basically have three statuses, what you are seeing over here. One is active, one is inactive, and the other is locked. Now, these three statuses are inbuilt in the system. Now, we cannot have an additional, status, or we cannot customize the functionality of these statuses. It has to be between these three. Now, let's try to understand what does each of these mean. What does active, inactive, and locked means? Now, let's take an example that I am creating an Archer account right now, and this is going to be somebody for a user who is going to work as a business user in Archer and perform some kind of audits or risk or third party vendor management, business resiliency, etc. He may have some kind of roles and responsibilities to play in. So I will by default choose his status as active, that he is an active member of Archer and he logs in once or twice a week or maybe twice a month or so. Still his status is active. Now I need to choose the status as inactive is the time when somebody leaves the organization or somebody changes the position within the organization or is no longer associated with the organization. At that point in time, you change the status to inactive. And when we change the status to inactive, that means that all these functionalities or all his logins with the help of which he can access Archer will no longer be valid. He will no longer be able to log in through an inactive account, his user account, his password, everything will be disabled. But still, he exists in the system, but without any kind of privileges, without any kind of logins, or without any kind of access to the system. So this is the time when we use inactive as the status. And lastly, the status is locked. So lock status will come automatically on its own if you try to enter a wrong password multiple times in the system. Now we are going to look at the security parameters where I'll be showing you how the password parameters, how the login parameters are configured for Archer. We will see at that, we will see the parameters in about a moment. But just for your information right now, lock status would come automatically when somebody tries to enter a wrong password multiple times. So from a security perspective, we disable their login and their account gets locked. So as a system administrator, they will have to activate his account again, change the password, and send him the uh, credentials with new password and identity. So this is what each of these status offer us. Now here comes the password part. Now with password part, I have to enter a password with certain characteristics, which could be special characters, which could be case sensitive characters, which could be digits, which could be numbers, etc. Now, as I said, in security parameters, we define how your password should look like, right? So we already have a predefined configuration done, and we will see in security parameters. So right now, for creating a user account, I'm just entering the password. So I have entered my password as Archer at the rate 123, and same I am repeating it over here, Archer at the rate 123. And then I'll use force password on next sign on, because as an administrator, I am changing your password. which could hold as a temporary password, and the next time when I log in with this account, Archer will prompt me to enter a new password. So I've entered a password, and I've also enabled this force password change as an option. This force password change means that the next time you log into the system, Archer will throw you a message that please change the password or please enter a new password, and then you will be able to log in. We will take a look at this in about a moment. And also, as we were talking about notifications, if I enable this option, Archer has the capability to send you the user ID, what I have created, then my temporary password, what I have entered over here, and my URL to log into the instance of Archer through an automated system notifications. So if I enable this option, Archer will send out a notification to this email address, what I have mentioned here, with the user ID, with a temporary password, and my web URL to log into the tool. So this is what this option offers us. And now comes the security parameter path. Now, ideally in Archer, we have three security parameters. One is general user, another one is Archer services, and third one is default administrative user. Now, how does each of these parameter differ from one, to each other? So if I were to choose general user parameter is ideally for real-time users. Real-time users who have actually one or the other functions to play into the tool, right? Be it for risk assessments, be it for audits, and they are real-time actual employees or contractors for the organization. They are all classified as general user parameters in Archer. The next one is Archer services parameter. Now, with several other functionalities, if we talk about integration, if we talk about reporting, or if we talk about some kind of Windows credentials, right? For all of them, there are certain system accounts we need to use while executing those functionalities in Archer. So all of those functionalities and all of those system generated users, they are not real time users, but they perform one or the other activity to satisfy a functionality in Archer. They're all under the banner of Archer services parameter. And you can set up different password, different configuration, different security parameters for each of these. So all those accounts are classified under Archer services parameter. And the last one is default administrative user. So now let's say we are system administrators, that we are creating the Archer account, we are going through the administration dashboard, and we work as administrators in Archer. But an Archer administrator would be a real-time user. He would be an actual person in the organization. Now, for several functionalities, when it comes to integration or exchange of data from one platform to another, sending of files from Archer to external host, or getting the files from external host to Archer, we may need system administrator privileges for system accounts or services account. So for those accounts in place, we use the security parameter as default administrative parameter, default services parameter, sorry. So this is the difference between three of these: default user, Archer services, and default administrative user parameters. Now each of these parameter can be completely customized according to need of your organization, which I'll show you in a moment. And then last options, what we see over here is default homepage. Uh, the homepage that we saw at the very beginning when I log into the Archer, this is the homepage that I see. And if I change this to a particular dashboard, if I want to customize and choose a particular dashboard, I can choose it this way. Now, since I'm an administrator, I do have the rights, but for the users, you need to go ahead and customize this, or at least give them the rights over here to choose the dashboard they want. So now this is the dashboard. When I log in with Archer, this is the dashboard that I would be seeing in. So these changes you can make it from here. Default homepage, when you log into Archer, this is what you want to see. And last one is about the notes. So any specific notes or any specific comments if you want to put up for this Archer account, you can go ahead and put this up over here. So this is a simple text field for your information, for your knowledge. You can put up the details for a particular account over here. And this is a free text field. So I've created the user account. I've completed all the mandatory details, and now I'm going to save it. So I've saved it, and my Archer account is ready. My Archer account is created, and my Archer account is ready to be used. So let me show you by logging in this with account, right, without having any kind of privileges, right, because this is just a generic account what we have created. And let's check this functionality as well. So I'm going to open an incognito mode, and I will open up URL for Archer. I'll enter the username, I'll enter the instance ID, and I'll enter up the. So this is about the basic user creation in Archer. Now let's talk about security parameters in Archer. So remember, we just now studied there are three security parameters: general, Archer services, and default administrative user. Now I'm going to click on this security parameters. I'm going to close this account, and I click on security parameters from administration. And you can see these are three parameters available to me. So on user general user parameter, I get to adjust all of my password properties, that whether I want my password what we just created as Archer at 123 to be of 9 characters, 15 characters, 17 characters, right? Whatever minimum length I may need to have for a characters, I can change it from here, right? I can change the password length from here, and I can choose according to my organization's policy, or I can go with a general security policy what your organization has designed. So I can choose a minimum password length. I can choose whether I need any numeric character in between or not, whether I need an uppercase character or not. I can choose several other characteristics for a password, like uppercase characteristics. Do I need alpha characteristics? Do I need special characteristics? Do I need lowercase? Right, all of these characteristics what I want in a password, I can completely customize it from here. And this goes for general user parameter. So remember, this does not differ from one user to the other user. This helps us differentiate between a regular user or a real-time user to whom we classify as general user parameter compared to both the system generated users what we have created. The password characteristics, and then we enter up minimum password character, what is required, what is numeric, uppercase, lowercase, special, alpha, and I can choose it according to my parameter. Then I can go ahead and change that how frequently do you need to change the password change interval or password change frequency. I can choose 9 days, I can choose 90 days, I can choose 50 days, whatever count I may want. I can simply change it. Previous passwords disallowed, previous 5 password, 10 password, 15 passwords, completely customizable from here. Password expiration notice, as we were just talking about that notification, that when you create a user account and you enable that notification option, you receive an email from Archer with your user account, user ID, with your password and your web URL to log in. So similarly, when your password is about to expire, you get a notice 30 days prior that your password is about to expire, and then you need to go ahead and change your password with a new uh, password characteristics and length, and you can completely choose a new password. So this is what I can configure around password properties. Similarly, around authorization properties, I can configure. When we just saw about locked status, we saw active, inactive, and locked. So here I have given 3 attempts. So if I change from 3 to 5 attempts, if I enter a wrong password for 5 times, after that my account will get locked. If I keep it 3, then after 3 wrong attempts, my password would get locked. My account would get locked. So this is the maximum failed login attempts or wrong login attempts I can choose to have it. And similarly, it comes with the session timeout. Like let's say with this session, I have logged in with my account and I have given a timeout of 2 hours. So it means that I can continuously work on this instance with my account at a stretch for 2 hours. After 2 hours, I'll be automatically logged off from the system. So once I complete 2 hours, I'll be kicked off from my session and I'll have to enter my credentials again to log in. So it may be the case that users are working on something critical, or users are, just having their tabs open and they come back after some time and they, continue with their work, and it feels very tedious to keep on logging in, log out. I can change from hours to days, minutes, I can do all of that stuff. So I feel like, let me just enable session timeout warning, that if I am about to get logged off, right, or my session is about to get complete, I need some kind of warning message over here which states me that in next 2 minutes or in next 5 minutes I am going to get logged off, and if you want to continue working, you have to hit on continue. So for that, I enable session timeout warnings over here. I can change that to 2 minutes, I can change that to 5 minutes, I can completely change the number over here. Completely up to me how much time I want to set up for warnings. That has to be in seconds. So I can choose that. And similarly, account lockout, by default after 999 days my account would get locked off. I can change this as well. I can customize this. I can change from 999 to beyond that or lesser than that, up to my company's policy. And then I can also choose particular dates, where I want this feature to be disabled. So if I choose that maybe on Sundays and Saturdays, I don't want these parameters to be applicable, right? So I can choose my days. So let's say Saturdays and Sundays, if I choose this, then on these particular days, my parameters over here will not be applicable. Like I will not see a session timeout warning over here, or I'll not see static session timeout for 8 hours or so, right? All of these will be disabled. Similarly, dates disabled over here um, means that on a specific dates, like specific dates of a calendar year, maybe they are public holidays or maybe regional holidays, I can choose throughout the year my calendar over here, my dates over here, that on these particular dates, right, people should not be uh, restricted with this authorization properties what we are describing over here. I can choose those days. So these are just functionalities available, but in real time scenarios, we do not use these kind of parameters for a user, because there are several other ways to control this. But just from a tool perspective, I'm giving an overview that these functionalities are available as well in Archer. You can set up a pin along with your password. So just as an additional layer of protection, Archer does offer you pin expiration, maximum pin attempts, etc. And last one is the mobile authorization properties. Now, if I enable mobile authorization, that means that under certain circumstances and for certain use cases like business continuity and resiliency, disaster recovery, or crisis management, under the area of business continuity management, you may have the need to log in through mobile device to get some kind of data or to get some kind of critical information from the system, where you're not able to log into Archer through through laptops or through your normal computers because of any kind of disaster or any kinds of events. So when you enable this, Archer will offer you to log in through your mobile phones. You just have to enter the URLs and your credentials, and you will be able to log in through your mobile phones. And you have to enable certain features in application which will help you to log in through your mobile. And then you get the same detailing around what should be the session timeout, how should be the login attempts, like even through mobile you have to log in, so how many failed login attempts you would like to allow, etc. So all these are mobile specific properties that one may need to enter or log into Archer through mobile. One can keep these parameters in mind and configure this. And similarly, you can define the other security parameters as well. Archer services parameter or default administrative user. Important thing to note that all these characteristics or all these functionalities from a usability point of view remains the same. How you differentiate between a service account and a real-time user is from length of the password, more towards password protection policy. But from functionality, the characteristics are going to remain the same, right? You cannot choose to completely eliminate this option of numeric characters. Like you cannot customize this. You feel like I don't want this option at all, or neither I want these options to be visible. No, that cannot be done. This is by default how any security parameter would stay in Archer. All you have to do is give different inputs according to the security parameter you are choosing in. Okay, so you can completely customize this based on service accounts, your policy for service accounts, how frequently the password should be changed, right? For service accounts, it is pretty early because people uh, can interrupt into the systems or can log in through the systems if service account password is not changed pretty frequently. So you can choose accordingly how frequently the password change interval should be. So all the characters what I just explained previously remains the same. From password properties, from authorization properties, everything is the same, and you can choose accordingly for system and service accounts. And same goes for default administrative user as well. Even for default administrative user, where you give system administrator privileges to system accounts or services account for performing specific kind of duties in Archer, you can define their password properties, their authorization properties in this particular manner. So this is all from an security parameter standpoint. All of these information can be customized. Now I'll explain you one more scenario. Okay. Now Again, your organization may have an additional level of security, and apart from this three, you feel like I want to customize and I want to choose or create another level of security parameters which I may be choosing for specific set of users. So I can create on add new, and I can choose this option as create a new security parameter from scratch. Okay, I can do that, and I can provide a naming over here, that security parameter special case. Uh, Apologize me for this brevity or so, but you get the idea that I am going to enter a text and I can enter any names over here. And similarly, I can define the password properties, authorization properties under a special scenario or special case, and I can choose to save it. So I can create a new security parameter as well. And going back to our user accounts, just to show you this relationship in a better way, I go to my account and then I choose the security parameter from this list. Now, as I mentioned very earlier, that you cannot differentiate password policy from one user to the other. You have to keep that parameter common for real-time users, system users. Okay, so you can choose the security parameters over here, and according to the properties, password properties, what you have defined for general user parameter, this would be applicable over here when changing the password or trying to attempt fail login attempts, locking out the account, etc. Okay, so this is about user accounts and security parameters in Archer. Now, let's move on to the other topics where we would be covering up the access control reports and some of the main functionalities related to permissioning, which is access role and groups. Now, Archer access control reports are by default system generated reports, which helps us getting an insight about user accounts, roles, groups, right, and several other security events, that what is exactly happening into Archer. Like what exactly have we done so far? How many users have been created? What are the privileges we have given to each of these user? How many times a particular user has logged in, right? From so several reports from security perspective, several reports from user account perspective, and certainly from roles and groups perspective. All of these are readily available access control reports in Archer. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at few of the reports now, and then once we complete the other topics, we'll get to the other reports. So right now, since we have completed user accounts, I will just go ahead and show you how user account report looks like. So I go to access control reports and sorry, I'll show it again. I'll go to access control reports, and within the access control reports, I go to user accounts all. So when I choose user accounts all, this means that all the user accounts I have in my system of Archer, I would get the list of all these users. I can see all the users with what is their name, what is their username, what is their role, what is their email address, and what is the status we have given each of them to. So this is like a report, and I can extract this data in Word format, PDF, Excel, CSV, or HTML file. If I simply click on Excel, it would be downloaded in my normal machine, and I get all these data what is present in Archer in a normal Excel file. So I open up my Excel and I'll get all the details about all the user accounts who is existing in my system in this way. And I can use it for multiple multiple ways which I may want. So all of these are available in this way, which can be extracted from Archer. Now you may think of that, if I do not want status or I do not want email address, rather than email address I want first name and last name, or maybe I want security parameter what they have chosen. Now please note that these reports are readily available in the system. Even as system administrators, we cannot customize this report. If I feel like I want to put status at the beginning and then name at the last, or username somewhere in between, or I want to remove username from here, I cannot do that. This is all readily available to us in the system. Whatever data we get in, even here the data we cannot eliminate this. Like if I want that, I just want to eliminate this first three entries, I cannot do that. These are all readily available data what is present in system. So I cannot customize the data as well. I can download it, and then again in Excel and CSV and Word, whatever customization you want to do according to your needs, you can do it. But from Archer, system will not allow you to manipulate any kind of data or manipulate any kinds of fields from here. I can still further customize this user account based on statuses what we have studied, active, inactive, and locked. So if I just want data of the users that are locked in the system, I can simply put up status as locked like this, and I get the details and data like this. If I put up inactive, I get the data in this way. Unfortunately, there are no inactive accounts, so I do not get the data. Then if I try to change to active, all the active accounts in the system will be visible to me for uh, extraction. So this is one of the user accounts all report available in the system. Then I can even choose user inactivity log. So I would want to know that how many accounts have been inactivated in last 365 days, right? So unfortunately, none of the accounts as we saw in the report are inactive. I don't see the data, but I do get the details over here, that which user account got inactivated, what was the date it got inactivated, and when was the last time this user was able to access the system. So these reports are mainly from compliance standpoint, where you want to investigate certain compliance norms, or you want to check around for auditing part for external auditors, internal auditors, where you want how actually the system has been, how the administrators or how the users are maintaining the system, what are the breaches they found in these areas. So that's why these reports are not modifiable to anybody, and you cannot edit any data as well here. Whatever is available is exactly how the events have happened in the system. So nobody can change this access control reports in the system. Now let's look at some of the security events. Okay, what has happened? So there are a bunch of security events which Archer tracks through this reporting, right? There is a lot others which we may not be covering in the webinar, but definitely in our Archer course, the Archer Administrator course, I would be teaching you all of these in details. But at the moment, to get an idea that how many user accounts have been added in last 24 hours, right? So it shows me this detail, that on this particular date and time, this was the user who created this account. So right now, what we created as InfoSec train, I got my date and time, I got the user who created it, and I get to know that what activity I have done. So I added a user account or created a user account in last 24 hours. Similarly, I can change the date range to 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. I can even give a custom range, right? Maybe from 1st of January till 5th of August. I can choose a date range, click on OK. So I get all of these details over here, that which user has created what not, etc. in the system. Then even I get to know how many user accounts have been deleted so far in the system from this state to this state, how many user accounts have been modified or user login has been modified. Okay, so I get all of these security events around this. User removed from any kind of groups, we terminate somebody's access, we terminate somebody's role, then we at least need to have a track, or we at least need to have some sort of information or data archived that these users got removed from these groups or these roles, etc., and who was the initiating user who did it. So we get all of these details from here. Similarly, account status as well. If you change the status from active, inactive, we get the security events like this. Who was the user who inactivated it? Who was the one who activated it, etc. Get all of these information, and then bunch of others. That if we create any security parameter, has any security parameter been created? Yes, in fact, three of them, but we do not see a name because it has been deleted. Any security parameter may be modified? Yes, this has been modified on these many dates by these many users. Security parameters deleted? Yes. So basically we get all the information regarding the changes what we are doing throughout the access control area, right? And few other reports, additional reports as well, which covers a little bit of advanced features of Archer, right? So we get to know all of these details or all of these events from here, and you can extract this report. You can extract this report, customize the dates over here from whichever range you may want to select, and it will give you all the information and as well as the event what has been done. So these reports are really helpful for us to have a compliance check on in case of any anomalies or in case of any unforeseen events throughout the organization. And remember that these reports are only accessible by the administrators. A common user or a general user cannot access these reports. These reports are only available to the administrators, and administrators has to share it with the team or respectable departments. So similarly, we have other reports available as well for security parameters. Whatever we were just checking, that how many characters are needed, how many alphanumeric characters are needed, special characters. If I want to extract these properties, if I want to extract this data, I can simply put up an extract and extract in form of a Word file, CSV file, as we have seen before, and it would be available to me for download like this. So I get the complete details in this way. Similarly, locked account, failed login attempts. Now this is an important one. Now, if I try to enter up a wrong password multiple times, right? Even in that scenario, Archer is able to track all the attempts what has been made by a user and total how many attempts have been made. We can try out one of the examples and you'll see how we get the updates in the report over here. So I have logged out from the infosec account what we just created, and I'm going to log in with by entering a wrong password over here. say webinar1 instance as this name and wrong password. I'm going to enter a wrong password over here, something like this, and I log in. So system is not allowing me. Now I try to log in again, the wrong password. Now again I get the error. Now let's go ahead and try to get to this report and let's see if we have the entry over here or not. So I'll refresh this page. Failed login attempts, and it exactly gives me the data that this user tried to have two wrong login attempts on this date. This was the last attempt and this was the last login I did. So very initially when creating the Archer account. So all of these details are captured, whatever is happening throughout the system, throughout access control areas, and certain functionalities throughout in applications or within the application. There are certain functionalities as well. All of these will be captured basically from access control reports. This is the basic purpose of having access control reports in Archer. Remember again, access control reports cannot be modified, cannot be deleted. You cannot change any data. You cannot change any configuration. All you have to do is choose the correct access control report according to your needs, right? And then majority of the security events, what you see would be available here. And every report would be provided with the description that what exactly this report stands for. So you get all of these information here in the description and you can choose the reports accordingly. Now, these are two very important topics in Archer when it comes to giving accesses to the user for specific application, right? If I choose that I am creating a user, but I also need to define in Archer that for which applications am I giving privileges and what level of privileges I am giving to that particular user. So primarily, this is what we are going to study in access roles. And also access role is the core or the heart of permissioning. Any basic permissioning in Archer is given primarily at the access role level. So access role level is at the very basic stage, at the very primary stage. And this is where we define the initial level of permission. Without defining permissions in access roles, remember we cannot do or we cannot give any kind of privileges like create, read, update, delete. Okay, we cannot give any kind of privileges without defining an access role for a user. So let's try to create one access role. Okay, and let's try to give certain permissions for an application. So I'm clicking on add new over here, and then I'm going to give name as infosec access roles. Give my name over here. Aliasing will be auto populated, and this is mainly used from a database standpoint. And here comes the description. So description is a text field where I can enter up details about why am I creating this access role, what specific purpose does an access role serve, right? Or any basic information about access roles which helps the admin understand that why this access role is created. So the purpose of access role is, as I said earlier, to give permissions at several application levels in Archer. So I am creating this access role, and this description is for admins only. This description is not visible to users or it's not visible anywhere on the front end. This is just for our purpose to get an idea and get an understanding that why this access role is created, so that at any point in time, if there are changes or modifications, you have an idea from this description. And even you can make this bold, make this italic, you can give a color coding, right? So several options available like this. So you can create or you can list down the points as well, right? So several options available around this. This is what description has to stand for here in Archer. And now if I go to default homepage. Now remember when we were creating this Archer account, I'll go back to the Archer account what we created. Webinar 1. I was able to choose between this two. Either I can choose task driven landing page or a dashboard. And a similar option I get here in default homepage as well. Now ideally, so now I'll go ahead and go on the rights. And this is our main area, that how do we want to define the permissions. Now I'm choosing one application because I know this is existing in the system, right? Else there is a separate process for creating the applications from scratch, which we would be looking into that tomorrow in tomorrow's webinar. But right now I know that this is an application what is existing in system, and it is in audit planning and quality area. I get this information from access roles. So I choose that I do want to give read rights, I do want to give update rights, and I do want to give create rights for this access role on this particular application, which is application test. I do not define for any other application. I do not give, let's say, for audit plan or for risk register or so. So here is risk register, but I'm not defining anything here. Similarly, for audit plan, I do not give any kind of permission. Now I'm specifically creating this access role, right, with the help of which user gets permission to this particular application, which is application test. I'm just giving create, read, and update rights for this particular user for application test. Now I can choose to give create, read, update for risk register as well, for audit plan as well. I can choose that. But ideally, when we give access roles, right, usually what we do is we give them the basic level of permission, like either read rights or so, for very generic application, and then we give specific permission for specific applications, just to differentiate and have easy for maintenance. But with one access role, I can give permission to a user for multiple applications as well. There is no harm or there is no restriction around it. So right now what I've chosen is I've chosen one application, application test, and I've given create, read, and update rights. I'm not giving deletion rights because I do want to show you that deletion would be disabled. And then once we enable this deletion option, even deletion would be possible. So on content record, I'm giving create, read, and update rights. And I'm also giving create, read, and update rights for a report. I'm giving for export, print, and email as well. Now, export, print, and email are different functionalities in Archer. They are just functionalities, and we'll see about it in a moment. What does this mean? And by enabling this option, what benefits a user is going to get. So what I've done is I've given him create, read, and update rights for application test. Okay. And then I've also given him create, read, and update rights for reporting functionality, which is also present for every application. Every application you can create reports for. So I've even enabled this functionality. And then I've given him print rights, email rights, and export option rights. Uh, we'll refrain from going into these details because they are very much advanced. let's clear this off first. So now I go ahead and I save it. So I created one access role. I defined it as infosec access role and I gave rights on application test. Okay. And I save it and I close it. So the very initial level, I have created one access role and I have given this information for one application, which is application test. Now comes the question that if I want my infosec train account to have access on application test, how will I do it? So for that, I have to go to roles and I have to choose the role what I just created. Okay, so I just choose infosec access roles. Now when I choose this access role and I save it, that means that whatever permissions I defined in infosec access role, whatever permissions I gave for application test, this particular user infosec train will have all those rights. Okay, so now infosec train, right, this user account will be able to access application test. He will be able to create application test records. He'll be able to update application access roles, and he'll be also able to see all the records in application test. So all you have to do is go to the user account and define this role. Without defining the roles, this guy will not get the rights or not get the privileges. So keeping it simple, I gave this access role on the profile and I'm saving it and closing it. So let me log in now with infosec account and let me show you how this is available. And then we'll remove certain permissions and also try to check it that how the rights go away as well. So I log in with webinar 1. I go to CHRDCA and I enter up the password. So now I have logged in with infosec. And now I do know this is under audit planning and quality and application test. So I click on this application test. And now as you can see, there are 29 records in the system and I am able to see all 29 records. I can individually go to each of these records present in the system. And I can check the data. So my very first condition of read, right? I am able to read it. Yes, that is done. At the same time, you see this option of edit and view. I am able to edit it. I can click on edit and maybe I can add up certain values over here, or I can change, let's say, from incomplete to not started or in progress. I can save it. Then I can change the submit date as well. Okay, so basically I am able to edit this record. As you can see, I am able to edit this details over here. So I got my create rights, I got my read rights, I got my update rights as well. Now let's try to create one new record. So I click on this new and I click on continue. So you see this is add new record. I'm creating a new record because in the access role I gave create, read and update. So let's say I'm giving some random information over here. I'm choosing details over here. I'm choosing a value over here. Basically, I am able to create this and I am able to save this. So I was able to do all three activities. I was able to create, I was able to update, and I was able to read. Now let's see whether am I able to delete it or not. So you see this option is disabled for me. This option is grayed out for me. I cannot go ahead and delete this because at the access role I did not provide deletion rights. I go on another record and try to see. Again, even over here, deletion is not possible. So since I did not give access role rights, deletion will not be possible for me at any point in time. I cannot delete any records from the system because from my access role, I have not defined this permissions. So very basic permission for records is creating, updating and reading, which I have given and which is already enabled. Now, as you may see, we also gave export option. So I can even choose to export this as we have seen earlier in Excel file, CSV file, PDF file, Word file, etc. We can choose to do that. Then I also chose an option for email. Okay, so let's try to check that as well. So I open up one of the reports, and as you can see, I have this share option enabled. I can either copy this link, okay, or I choose to email this. Okay, I can do that as well, which we already enabled. And then last thing was print. If I want to print this page, or if I may want to print a particular record, I can go here and I can choose to print it. I can choose to export this. I can choose to email this, right? All the options are possible for me because I provided this rights at the access role level. Similarly, I can save this and I can create a report as well because I did give the report rights. So I choose report rights. I can give any name for my report. I'm giving report rights and I'm saving it. And then I go to report rights. So yes, I am able to save this report. Can I edit this report? Let's try to see modify, and let me remove few of the fields from my list. I want to remove last updated. I can remove numbers. I can remove record status and I can just search it. So yes, I can update this as well, and whatever updates I have made, I can save as well. So I can see the report, I can update the report, and I can create the report. So whatever I gave an access role, meaning to say, is applicable to us or it's visible to us with the functionalities when we go to the application. So similarly for every application, okay, either that is present in the system or you are creating on your own, you can define the permissions from access role. Without having permissions in the access role for application, you cannot update, create, read, delete anything. None of these things would be possible. This is how important access roles are in Archer. Now let's try to see that I'm removing create option and I'm also removing update option and I'm giving delete option. Okay. So just read and delete. Okay. I'm removing create and update. And then I'm also removing this create option for reports. And let's try to see what happens now. I've modified the permissions. So I go in here with InfoSec account. I refresh this. Now, as you can see, I'm here in the record, but you may be seeing that view and edit option is missing because I did not give update rights. So I am not able to update anything over here. This is stagnant to me. Everything is read only to me. I cannot modify anything over here. This is completely read only. I cannot change anything. I cannot update date over here, values over here, which we used to do earlier. At the same time, you see this new option is also disabled for me because I did not give new option as well over here. Let's check from here. So see, create is no longer available, so is update. Hence, I'm not able to create, I'm not able to update, but I've enabled delete. So you see, delete option is available to me and I can delete as well. So by enabling this delete option, I can go ahead and delete the records from the system. Similarly, I did not provide new report creation rights as well. So if I go in here and if I click on this, or maybe I go back to Archer, you see the save is disabled for me. I cannot save or I cannot create anything. This is fine, but I hit on search. Since I'm not able to save it, I cannot create a report. This is disabled for me. Going to this access rights over here. But I can read and update. So what I'll do is I'll go to reports what I just created, right? So this report is available and I can modify this save report changes. So whatever changes I'm making, I can save it. I can choose to modify and say that I just want 5 records to be displayed. And I save these changes. So I'm able to modify it. I'm able to update it, but I cannot create a new one or I cannot uh, delete any existing ones. This is what permissions at access role mean us. That access roles are the base or the heart of permissioning, where you have to define either create, read, update, deletion rights for every individual applications, right? This does not mean that giving rights over here, I would be able to do it for any application here, right? I cannot even see the other applications. See this one, I cannot even see the data because if I don't have the read rights, I'll not be able to see it, right? So you have to define all kinds of permissions at the access role very initially to at least see the data, create the data, update, delete anything for every application. So by default, when we are creating access role, there is always a generic role created. Like a general role is always created as a best practice, that by default that role is given to everybody with some minimal level of basic rights. So general role is always created. This is for a general user, and you can choose to give this as assign as default. So that means for every user you create, by default this role will be given. So this is very common and this is by default what you give over here. And then we choose that, let's see here at application test, has somebody given any rights? No, nobody has given the rights. So general user will not be able to create, read, update, delete anything. But he gets some basic rights around different applications. So we have seen access roles and now we are going to take a look at groups in Archer. Now I'll put it very simply for groups that, let's say we have a set of users who perform same activities in Archer, but they're working on different records. As I gave very initial example of assets, IT assets, right? A risk analyst, few risk analysts would be working on servers, right? They may be working on servers and doing their assessment or so. Few would be working on networks and firewalls and doing their assessment. Few would be working on other kinds of IT assets in the organization, but they are all doing the same job or same task of risk analysis, right? They are performing risk assessments, so their role is the same, but what the records what they choose, or the assessment what they are doing for is different. So what we can do is for the same kind of users where they need, where they're doing similar kind of activities, we can create a group in Archer, right? And we can choose those same users together, right? And let's see how that group is useful to us and how we can merge access roles and groups. So I created infosec train group. Again, whatever description you may want to provide, you can. Default homepage, as we have seen before, ideally not recommended to give from groups. Okay. And then here is the option I get, that how many users from the list I do want to give them the rights. So let's say I choose couple of them in the list, that all these people are going to work as risk analyst for me. They're all risk analyst people, right? So I can choose all these users from here. And then I go ahead and save it. So I created one group, right? And then I have added certain users to it, which I know that are going to perform same activities. Now comes the important part as roles. Now we know that grouping does not give us permissions of create, read, update, delete. That we have to give from access role level. So what we can do is within access role, I can associate that group, right? So what happens is I do not individually go to each of the user accounts and I assign access role, I give access role, etc. This access role will be applicable to the entire group. I do not need to individually grant permissions, or I individually do not need to give access roles to every user. Now I interlink this access role and group together. So I have my group over here. I selected this group within this access role, which is infosec access role. Now let's try to look how this would look like from a user account perspective. So let me choose one of them with read permissions. Maybe I go to read 3. I go to group, and since I've added infosec train group over here, I can see that access role as well is present in this profile. If I remove the group from here, infosec train group, I save it, my access role will also go away. See, he hasn't got access roles. If I add it again, I'll get my access role again. So this gets very easy for me to maintain in form of a group. That what I do is, let's say I want to give this group to 10 different people. So I just add this 10 people to a group, and by default they get the access roles, right? Rather than individually going to each of these users and giving them access role manually, right? Which becomes very tedious task when you have a lot of users present in the system. So that's one of the reasons why we interlink group and roles as well. Groups helps us giving an understanding that what kind of access role we may need to provide for a group, because a group is created with a purpose, as I said, for risk assessment. So you know that this access role what is present in a group, right, is present in each of the user's profile, and they are meant for a specific purpose. But a user can have multiple access roles, but interlinking groups and roles help us in these kinds of ways. So group has nothing to do with permission. This is just meant for grouping same set of users together. This is what grouping has to offer us. So you can simply choose users from the list over here, or you can even go to individual user profile and give them the groups. So I can go to, let's say, this user, I can go to groups, and then I can choose to add the groups from the list. I can choose this group. I can again do a lookup and choose another group from here. Okay, like this. So I can do this way as well, and from the group itself as well. So at both the places I can add up the groups. And similarly, based on these data, I can check up between roles and groups at how the linkage is possible, right? So we can see the relation that, let's try to see for our infosec. So I created this infosec group and I have this role associated to it. So same thing, I can export this and I can choose to share it with respective department, and I can even customize based on these roles. So let's say I select all groups and then I choose limited role over here. So I can customize even based on roles and get my report. So I can choose anything from here. Okay. And I get the information. So this is like roles by group. Then I also get members by group, that how many members are present in a single group. If I want that data, I can get it as well. I choose infosec train group and then I get all the members over here. That these members are present in this particular group. So all these different reports are again part of access control reports as seen earlier. And then I can completely customize, according to my need and extract what is existing. So I choose again for a particular user, right, to see what specific right he has got on his profile. I choose infosec train and then I choose the access control rights by user. So whatever rights this specific user has got, I can extract this as well. That this user has got rights on activated plans application test according to how we have given. On BU he has got just got read rights. Then again on complaints register he has got these many rights. So even you can customize this based on user to user case as well. And you can extract the report from access control reports.